Hey guys. This is part 9 of What If Sarada Went Back in Time and Met Team 7. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 28. Sarada and her teammates watch in horror as the past members of Team 7 split up, each taking on a different insurmountable task. Sasuke nudges Naruto to get behind him. Eyes on Jiken, and Sakura drags Kakashi as far out of the range as fighting as possible. Don't go near the barrier, Sarada warns when her mother almost staggers into it. If you go through it, time will stop for you, the same as for my dad and Uncle Naruto. Sakura offers a sharp nod to show that she has heard but doesn't pause in moving Kakashi. We have to get in there, Boruto declares, taking a step back and focusing his gaze on the force field of time, instead of on the melee occurring within. Sarada swallows nervously, eyes flitting from the immobile, adult versions of her parents, to the ones fighting for their lives beyond them. There's no way. It goes all the way around, maybe even underground if it's an actual pocket. There's got to be a way to disrupt it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just chakra. Some old lady's creepy, time-stopping chakra, but still chakra. No barrier is completely uniform, Mitsuki suggests. If we can find a point in the force field that is thinnest, perhaps overloading raw chakra through that would short out the rest of the barrier. Maybe, Sarada says with a frown, but she doesn't think that would be very safe for the people within it. Something nags at her, something obvious that she ought to be thinking of. Ugh, we have to get in there, or at least get Dad and Uncle Sasuke out of the barrier, Boruto agrees. If anyone's going to stop these creeps, it's them. Mitsuki takes a few steps backward and lobs several kunai through the churning gold wall, aiming toward Taisoko. Almost the moment the weapons cross through, they freeze in the air. It's not good, he sighs, even inanimate objects are affected. Boruto, can you see if there are any chakra gathering points we might attack? It's not exactly something I can perform on demand, Boruto hisses, glancing nervously at Sarada. She ignores them. They don't have time to waste on things that can't help right now, especially not since that switch Jiken flipped is still in a downward position, sending untold amounts of time ripples out. It doesn't look like the past Team 7 is anywhere close to turning it off. Wait, it's a machine, she says, turning to Boruto and Mitsuki with excitement. Boruto gives her an unimpressed look. Yeah, we know that already. No, it's a machine. Machines need power sources, she reminds them breathlessly. And the one for this one must be huge, not something that could be in the room with Taisoko, or we'd see it right now. It is big enough to generate a phenomenon reaching for days from its origin, Mitsuki muses. And it would be stupid to put everything in the one room, anyway, Boruto concludes, catching on. He pumps his fist. All right. Let's get out of here, find the power source and destroy it. That'll stop all this time stuff, right? Unless it's self-sustaining, Sarada murmurs, but more to herself than the others. It's best not to dwell on more potential problems than she already has. Within the bubble, Sakura is doing her best to make Kakashi comfortable and keep him out of the eyes of the two opponents within. Sasuke and Naruto have a sharp exchange of words, and then Sasuke blinks and smirks. Whatever, loser. Try not to die. He uses a shushin to vanish across the room. None of you better die, Sarada orders, not even sure anyone hears her. She backs away from the yellow wall of chakra. We've got a plan, so hang in there as long as possible. She follows Boruto and Mitsuki out of the room before she can hear a response. The three of them dart out of the grotto and back onto the rickety stairwell from earlier. As they run, Sarada's eyes flick around, trying to notice if there are any other crevices or openings she didn't notice before. They were so intent on reaching Lord Seventh and Papa that they didn't stop to see what else lay hidden in the caverns of the giant dome. If it's powering her time paradox machine, then the source would be directly underneath. Maybe there's an electrical tunnel cutting upward through the rock, she suggests. Look on the levels directly below the landing of the stairwell shakes, forcing the three genin to grab hold of the railings. Several feet away, three hulking, bat-like figures flock out the little light from the bare bulbs nearby. Oh man, not these guys again, Boruto complains. This day just keeps getting better and better. Any bright ideas? Sarada prompts. It's your turn. How the hell is it my turn? Mitsuki already saved us with his snakes, and I nearly fried my arm with a raisin shuriken. It's your turn. Great, Sarada mutters as the three of them slowly back up. There's nowhere they can duck in to hide nearby, and if they start running off, the creatures will just follow them. Somehow, they have go on the offensive. Down below, they hear the sounds of Mama and Aunt Hinata dealing with the still numerous hordes of monsters. Somewhere, Konohamaru is still struggling and fighting too. Let's try to knock them out and send them down there, Sarada suggests. Either the impact gets them, or our moms do. Temporary solution, Mitsuki reminds her. There will be more coming. It's better than nothing. I'll take it, Boruto declares, bending forward and preparing to lunge. Everyone ready? No. Remember, if all else fails, sigils in the hearts. Yash! The three of them surge forward as one, the rusted metal beneath their feet clanging in protest. The curse-marked creatures roar in anticipation, bracing themselves for a direct onslaught. At the last second, the genin pull back on their speed, and Boruto calls up three clones to attack in their place, dropping at the last second to skid through the gaps in their legs. While the beasts are occupied, he begins to mold the air into a Sharingan. One of the beasts ignores his clones, however, ducking forward and reaching out a gnarled hand for Sarada, who wastes no time in flipping it over her shoulder, trying to send it careening into the wall directly beside them. The move falls short, however, the monster recovering itself inches before the wall, spinning round to swipe at Mitsuki. Stretching his arm out, Mitsuki reaches for the cave ceiling, using a stalactite to pull himself out of the path of jagged claws. His opponent tries to follow, gnashing and snapping at his feet. The second beast has also lost interest in Boruto's clones and vaults towards Sarada, who narrowly avoids it by running up the cavern walls, willing her chakra to keep her from falling down. She feels the rancid breath on her neck and the swish of sharp claws trying to catch hold of her, and if she doesn't speed up it's going to get her. Mitsuki, still holding onto the stalactite, swings around, knocking his knee into her pursuer and twisting his body to send it crashing back downward, knocking into the first creature. Meanwhile, Boruto yells in effort, shoving his Sharingan into the back of the third creature with such force that it rips completely through the body. But he doesn't get a chance to react in disgust. As soon as the beast's torso drops, it begins to drag itself toward him, unyielding fingers clawing their way up his leg. Ugh! Get it off! Get it off! Boruto yells, trying to shake himself free. Paces away, the beast's lower half begins to flicker and twitch, fading away like smoke and then attaching itself back to the rest of it. Mitsuki drops down beside the two brawlers, and with his fist radiating crackling yellow electricity, unceremoniously shoves his fist entirely through the creature's chest. Blood sprays Boruto's face, and he turns greenish as the heart in Mitsuki's hand melts to nothingness in his fist. You couldn't have pulled it off me first? We didn't have time for that. You could have gotten me accidentally. I knew you'd move at the last second. No, you didn't. Would you two gossiping like old women? Sarada yells. She is upside down on the cavern ceiling, wires trailing from her fingers and wrapped around the other two creatures that she has trussed together. Take them out already! Mitsuki pulls himself free of the beast's body, dropping it to the ground, and advances on the other two curse-marked creatures, lashing out with his arm and shoving it through both their chests without hesitation. So much for sending them down to your parents, he remarks mildly. Should we be asking why that doesn't seem to bother you? Boruto asks, trying to wipe the blood off of his face. No, Mitsuki answers as he liquefies the hearts within his grasp. Sarada drops to the floor, landing in a crouch. That was too easy, she says with a frown. You think that was easy? She's right, Mitsuki agrees. These creatures gave your parents trouble, and we just took out 3 with barely any effort. It's as if He is cut off by a snarl, and suddenly Boruto is seized from behind and lobbed face first into the cave wall opposite. He goes down hard on the metal stair and doesn't move. Boruto! Sarada yells, her eyes moving from her downed comrade to his attacker, the same creature that Mitsuki supposedly just saved him from. How is that possible? But you destroyed the heart, she whispers, taking a step back. The sigil should be gone. Unless not all her servants were branded on their hearts, Mitsuki theorizes. Sarada chokes. She shouldn't be surprised. Jiken, or at least Taisoko, has a kind of mercenary logic, and the best way to create effective pawns is to ensure that any weakness they have is hidden. That means the sigil could be anywhere in its body. Sarada's gaze flits to Boruto's still form, and then back to the approaching creature. Her eyes narrow. Then we destroy the whole body. Taking a page from her father's book, her fingers fly into the hand signs for a katan. Stay out of the way. Mitsuki doesn't need to be told twice, scattering away from her direct line of attack. Channeling as large a burst of chakra as she can muster, she expels an explosive twist of flame, willing it to completely encompass the approaching figure. She doesn't stop until her chest constricts from lack of oxygen, and she becomes dizzy. But by that point the creature has been reduced to a charred, shapeless crisp. It's not as strong as Papa's Amaterasu, but that thing not coming back from that. Too bad there's no way you can do that for all of them, Mitsuki says. Boruto won't be the only one passed out if you do that. There has to be something else. Ugh. One of the beasts they thought they dealt with seizes her from behind and plows her into the wall opposite Boruto. The other knocks Mitsuki's feet out from beneath him. Once on the ground, Mitsuki tries to crawl away, but the beast clutches his ankles, dragging him back toward him. Sarada tries to help him, but her opponent has seized her by the arm and the hip and shoves her into the nearest wall. No! She snarls in pain as her head cracks against the rock, but there's no chance to recover as she then finds herself hurtling up towards the ceiling, then back down again. The curse-marked beast is waiting, wicked talons raised to catch her on them, and Sarada forces herself to twist in midair. She only just manages to avoid a fatal wound, although the claws slice through the fleshy part of her back. Hitting the ground, she tucks and rolls, trying to regain her footing, but her opponent is reaching for her again, clenching fingers into her shoulders and snapping at her with its jaws. Sarada tries to keep her opponent at bay, jamming the heel of her hand into its throat, or twisting to land a punch to its sensitive-looking eyes. But she can't gain the power she needs to do it. Brute strength won't work here. I need to try something else. She straightens her free hand, willing her energy into sharpness until a chakra scalpel surrounds her fingertips. Without allowing herself to hesitate, she whips her hand forward, slicing through the tender skin of the creature's neck. Blood sprays her, soaking her all down her front. The beast slackens, loosening its grip on her, just enough for her to get away. Do something, quick! It's going to reset if I don't. There's a sudden wet thunk sound, metal boring into bone, and the beast she was fighting seizes and goes still, a kunai in the back of its neck. As it crumples to the ground, Sarada sees that her opponent wasn't the only victim. The creature trying to maul Mitsuki has frozen and collapsed upon him, two shurikens sticking out of the base of its spine. Sarada and Mitsuki glance over to where the weapons came from and see that Boruto has hauled himself to his feet. He is panting, shoulders shaking, still poised to throw his remaining kunai should they move again. There is an expression of pure fury on his otherwise open features. Boruto. How did you? I'll tell you later, he says shortly, turning the right side of his face from her and looking around. Are there any more on their way? Sarada looks around the shadowy darkness. None in the immediate area. Then let's go. They tramp down the rickety scaffolding, taking turns checking the crevices and doors for passageways. They have to be on the lookout in case any of the creatures are still lurking within, but there is a little luck on their side. Most of the creatures have already been drawn to the adults down below who present a bigger threat. At last, Sarada spots a giant door, several stories beneath Taisoko's grotto, fused to the surrounding stone with makeshift hinges. She dashes ahead of her teammates, arm at the ready. Her punch caves the door in, twisting the metal until it folds in half and whips to one side. Mitsuki and Boruto file into the room before her. Inside, they see a giant computer tower, with thick black tubes and lines leading straight up through the ceiling. A metal cage surrounds it from floor to ceiling, the spaces in between the bars too small to reach through with fingers or shuriken. I bet that's what we're looking for, Sarada says, pointing at the tubes. We take those out, the machine stops working. Forget the wires. Let's take out the whole computer. Boruto growls, a Rasengan spinning in his palm. One Kieru Rasengan coming up. He winds up like a pitcher and sends it flying. The swirling ball of energy disappears almost immediately, and they all wait for the telltale explosion to signify it reappeared in the cage. But nothing happens. What the? Boruto wonders, just as the door behind them is darkened by a hulking bat hybrid. Mitsuki moves immediately, snakes exploding from his arms and seizing the creature, before lobbing it over his head toward the central power unit. Before the creature has gone more than a few feet, it shrieks and suddenly explodes into a pink mist, forcing them all to duck. What the hell, Mitsuki? That wasn't me. It wasn't, Sarada says, her eyes flashing red as she surveys the room with new interest. She presses her hand to the floor, infusing it with her chakra and whispers, Kai. The genjutsu that hid it disappears, and a giant circular ceiling circle materializes in front of them, centered on the power unit. An identical ward has been etched into the ceiling. Sarada recognizes most of the characters used. It charges the air around it. Anything that passes through it gets incinerated. Or destroyed. That's why your Rasengan didn't go through. Geez, these people like their circles of doom, Boruto grumbles. Now what? Now you two guard the door while I try to figure this out, Sarada says. Unless you want to take that job? You're the one who loves games, right? Because this is just like a game. I'm having so much fun right now, aren't you, Mitsuki? Yes, actually. Right, should have known you'd say something like that. Sarada lets their voices wash over her, narrowing her eyes in concentration as she puzzles out the various ways they might destroy the ward to get to the power source. Shadow clones will burn up, lightning techniques would have to be strong enough to turn the entire room into a beacon, and that could run the risk not only of electrocuting them, but passing up into the grotto where Taisoko is facing her parents, electrocuting them as well. For all she knows, everything in the time bubble might suffer from that. If not for the barrier, I could use Shuriken Jutsu to hit all the vortices in the circle to short it out. But those would disintegrate before they reach the furthest ones. We can't take out the wards from the front. She considers the earth and stone walls surrounding them. None of them know Doton, but if they could, in theory, they might call up an earthquake to destroy the area, but Doton isn't so precise. Hey, Sarada. Boruto speaks up, frowning up at the seals on the ceiling. The right side of his face is away from her, but she is sure he is frowning in thought. The seals are inside the ward, right? Not outside? Right. Whoever came up with this had an obsessive sense of detail, or paranoia. So what if something takes out from inside? All the points of the warding circle have equivalent chakra force, so it would have to be simultaneous. Yeah, I know, but I can't think of anything that could do that without. Sarada trails off, and her mind casts back to earlier today, or yesterday, and she remembers having a similar conversation with Sakura. If we take out the walls where the most support is, we take the whole place down. If we set off some controlled explosions, we can cause this whole place to collapse. That could collapse more than just this cavern though. It's a risk we have to take. If the stone the seals are painted on crumble beneath it, the entire circle will be compromised. You just have to find the right spot, Mitsuki says, catching on, then apply the correct amount of force. Both of you, back up, now! She commands, scanning the walls on either side of the circular cavern. She will only get the one shot, too much force, and the room will get caved in and the power source will be trapped beneath the stone. Not enough force, and the stone beneath the seals won't break. If anything goes wrong, I don't want you trapped in here. They both scatter, jumping out of the room, and Sarada braces herself on one side of the room, facing the wall she intends to take out. Counting out paces, she does the best calculation she can for the proper force. One solid hit should cause a ripple effect to the floor and ceiling, weakening the foundations beneath. She takes a run at the wall. Shinaro, Naruto and Sasuke stand side by side for another moment, taking in their opponents, and then simultaneously take a run forward, headed for Jiken. Naruto throws himself at the man, tackling him around the middle, and as he bends forward, Sasuke jumps upward, stepping down hard on the back of his head, using the man to gain more momentum. As he flies through the air toward Taisoko, Jiken tries to pull away from Naruto, to grab hold of him, but Naruto summons another clone to weigh him down. Okay. Sasuke and I are in this together now, but how the hell are we going to take this guy out for good? We stab him, think we kill him, and he comes back. Something has to be linking him to the woman, the fox suggests in a rare feat of helpfulness. She must be using something to target her abilities and tie them to one person. Or even many. Naruto's eyes fly to the puzzling machines on either side of the woman. Sasuke, the other boy's eyes flick to Naruto, then follow his line of sight. Right. He says, just as Jiken renews his struggle against the blonde boy and Taisoko's wires and cables stretch out towards Sasuke. He jumps over them, tucking his knees to his chest as he leaps through the air, touches down on the live curve of one of them, and focuses his chakra to the balls of his feet and hands. He needs to keep ahead of them while he lays his trap. He doesn't call up a full Chidori, but his fingers crackle with electricity that draws Taisoko's eyes, just before he shorts one of them out. One of the giant cables catches him in the chest, throwing him backward, and he almost hits the golden time energy. At the last second, he uses Shunshin to bring him out of harm's way. He touches down in a crouch, his mouth tugging in a confident smirk. With Naruto and Sasuke renewing their assault on Taisoko, Sakura finds herself momentarily at a loss. Her brain is having trouble catching up with what she just did, giddy and terrified at the same time, adrenaline from fear and elation sending her buzzing. I hope it worked, she decides as her eyes fall on Kakashi. And now I need to do what I can for him. Sakura crawls over to check on him. His breathing is so shallow now it might as well be non-existent. She worries that even if he continues breathing, he might not necessarily wake up. He, more than any of them, has pushed his limit today, and there's no telling what effect prolonged use of a Mangekyo Sharingan can have on the human brain. He needs healing, she decides, and places her hands over his chest. She could barely heal Sarada's thumb before, but if she can't do anything else right now, she should at least be able to offer him something. She hesitates, uncertain, and glances up through the yellow haze. She knows Sarada is no longer there, but her eyes fall on Sasuke's future self. Right, the pink-haired girl says, and sets to her task with determination. Another line of Naruto's shadow clones forms between him and the pale man, charging him without hesitation. Jiken continues to move through the barrage with ease, knocking them out of existence with deft blows. Once he has run the gauntlet, he manages to reach Naruto, aiming a merciless punch to his gut, before kicking him toward the wall of chakra beyond him. Sasuke appears just in time, knocking Naruto off the collision course, and they both land together. There's a look they share, acknowledgement, respect, synchronicity, and then they both nod. Mottled black patterns erupt from Sasuke's neck, spreading across his shoulders and up the side of his face, and his Sharingan blazes with renewed power. Beside him, Naruto's body begins to glow with a shade of red energy that bubbles and seethes, and he suddenly drops to all fours. Behind him, a tail-shaped appendages whips back and forth, and then they are both gone again, vanished within a blink, reappearing in front of their respective opponents. Naruto unleashes a barrage of attacks on Jiken that rival Sasuke's for speed, rapid punches and kicks, all aimed at the most vulnerable parts of the body. Jiken puts up a fight. He knocks his knee to Naruto's nose, causing a spray of blood to coat both of them, but the wound heals almost immediately and Naruto crouches down to head at Jiken, sending him skidding and tumbling across the space. There are clones waiting for them, and they pick him up and toss him through the air, headed for another group of clones. Meanwhile, Taisoko is no longer simply using her cables, opening time windows and detonating the air whenever Sasuke lands somewhere for a second. He barely takes time to rest, doesn't even really need it, the way the power ripples through him. With a bare hand, he rips apart one of the giant cables that begins to snake around him, grinning at the ease of it. Sakura watches them both in horror, not entirely sure what she's seeing, but knowing that she is nowhere near the level needed to help them right now. She does notice there's a pattern in their movement though, as if they are trying to get toward the computers. Maybe if the computers get destroyed, the time bubble will stop? They don't look as if they'll be getting there anytime soon, but perhaps she can. Her eyes widen as she notices movement, just in the shadow of one of the computer consoles. She wouldn't even have noticed except she's in the exact right angle where she huddles beside Kakashi. Utterly unnoticed in the pandemonium, a pale-skinned, dark-haired child stares around him with an expression of utter terror. He cannot be more than 3 or 4 years old. It worked after all. Taisoko's portal hadn't just brought her and her team through, but it also brought Orochimaru, Sakura realizes, feeling breathless in dismay and disbelief. Granted, a weaker and completely unthreatening version of the old snake, but it's definitely him. For a wonder, Taisoko and Jiken haven't seen him, but she puts that down to one of them being stuck to a wall, and the other being assaulted by a bevy of shadow clones. Still, it's just a matter of time. She swallows, knowing with a quiet horror that if something happens to that little boy, everything is over. And with everyone else busy or unable to get to him, she's the only one who can save him. She is equally aware that this is very likely going to get her killed, and if that happens, is it even worth it to try? Don't be an idiot. You're going to die anyway. The only question is, how? Saving myself? Or Kakashi? Or a kid that's going to grow up to ruin the lives of the people I love? It should be a simple choice, based just on facts, but looking at the tiny boy's pale yellow eyes brimming with terrified tears, Sakura finds she can't be quite so cold. Sakura begins to inch, very slowly, along the edge of the circle they are all trapped in. Naruto and Sasuke are doing well enough to keep Taisoko and Jiken occupied, and all she has to do is focus on not falling through the barrier of frozen time. She jumps when Sasuke is thrown in her direction, skin scraping against the stone as he skids. He barely feels it as he gets back to his feet, and Sakura is so tempted to stop him, to keep him from giving in to the curse mark that fuels him now, but she knows she can't risk it. She watches him throw himself back into the fray, rolling underneath time windows and holding up Taisoko's own cables for her to detonate with her special ability. At last she manages to wrap several of them around Sasuke, constricting him in place while he struggles. Her eyes fly to Jiken, who stumbles as though punch-drunk. Naruto's clones vanish from the smoke and the Jinchuriki charges out, his arm raised to deliver a knockout blow to Jiken. "You have served me well, Jiken," Taisoko says coolly. "Continue to do so." Surprise crosses his face at the same moment that the space occupied by him and Naruto suddenly explodes. The explosion is such that it disintegrates a chunk of the ground beneath them. Blood and debris flies in every direction, and Sakura barely ducks in time, her eyes rivet in horror at the spot where her teammate just was. His name is frozen behind a lump in her throat. Orochimaru, still beneath the computer console, shrinks back in horror as Jiken's head and torso roll to the ground in front of him. "You!" Sasuke growls, still struggling. He was your subordinate, and he served his purpose, she replies without emotion. You piece of scum, a voice says from within the dust. Sakura's heart regains its rhythm as she recognized the shape there. Naruto, his clothes more battered and bloody than earlier, cradling his right arm. It looks like he didn't get away completely unscathed, even though he survived. You just blew him up without even thinking about it. He throws himself forward, but Taisoko brings up the wires that have Sasuke tangled within. Naruto collides with this, and they both fall in a heap. Taisoko's horrible mouth falls open a little. Your skill with shadow clones is significant, if even I could not tell the difference. I will remember that the next time. Her eyes burn brighter, and chakra gathers within her. There's a corresponding thrum of chakra from Jiken's head, and then his body pulls itself back together. Sakura watches in shock as the blood spatter and pieces of bone whiz back along their earlier trajectories, reassembling the body of Taisoko's lackey. Naruto uses his elongated nails to slice down the cables holding Sasuke, and the two boys are once more back to back. Ready to give up yet? TCH. I could do this all day. They set off again. Naruto stops a pace in front of Sasuke, creating a bridge with his hands, and helps propel him into the air toward Taisoko. Taking a page from his teammate's book, Sasuke forms the hand signs and calls up 4 clones of himself, each with a kunai. Taisoko snarls and uses her mangekyo, causing the air to explode and the clones to disappear, but not before they launch their projectiles. The kunai, charged with purple electricity, plow through the cords holding Taisoko to the wall. She falls forward in front of him. Jiken, upon seeing his mistress fall, gives a roar and plows toward her. Naruto creates a barrier in front of him. Meanwhile, Sakura finally makes it to the shivering boy hiding beneath the computer console, and slips into the shadow of the machine with him. Sure, she tells him, offering him what she hopes is a comforting smile. It's okay. Everything is going to be alright. Where's Mama and Papa? The tiny boy asks, his pupils narrowed to slits in his fright. We were traveling to the village and then, we'll find them, Sakura interrupts quickly, but for now, you have to be very quiet, okay? They can't find out you're here. But at the same time, she watches with horrified eyes as Jiken finally grabs hold of the original Naruto, making his clones disappear. Before anyone can act, he lobs him into the golden time field. Instantly, Naruto freezes in the same way that his adult self does. No! Sakura screams mentally, clamping down on her lips to keep the sound from escaping her. At the same time, she wraps a hand around the boy's mouth, trying to muffle his crying. They can't draw attention if they're found. The child suddenly goes rigid. Sakura whirls around just in time to see Jiken appear above them, triumph etched into every feature as he gazes down at the child that is Orochimaru. He doesn't even appear to be aware of Sakura, already grasping for the boy's neck. Mistress, I have him! He crows. At the other end of the bubble, Taisoko appears to hesitate for a moment, giving Sasuke an opening. He drops to the ground on one knee, panting as he studies the space between himself and Taisoko. The cords leading from her body all lie limply by her side. No longer attached to the wall, she is forced to stand on her own, her skeletal form heaving with the effort of remaining upright. Despite her own weakness and the stiffness in her joints, Sakura forces herself to act. Mustering as much chakra as she can into her fists, just as Sarada said she did, Sakura throws herself between Orochimaru and Jiken, and slams her knuckles together on either side of Jiken's outstretched wrist. There is a loud crack as the bones break between her hands, and a sharp lance of pain as one of her knuckles splits. Jiken hisses and recoils, and Sakura hurries the child away. Hide wherever you can, she whispers to him, before she is grasped roughly by the neck and thrown backwards. Jiken does not even seem to pay attention to her, so intent on getting the child Orochimaru. It gives Sakura a chance to recover, and form the hand signs. Kanashibari. She chokes, her paralysis jutsu taking him by surprise. She's too weak to maintain it very long, but it's enough for her to dart forward, and once more put herself between him and Orochimaru. The jutsu wears off and Jiken's cold, furious eyes focus on her. Get out of the way, or I will kill you. You'll kill me anyhow. He smiles unpleasantly. True, he unleashes a barrage of taijutsu upon her that she has to call upon all of her training to even keep up with. And I don't have Naruto's endurance or Sasuke's speed, she thinks, panicked. This isn't going to last long. Sasuke doesn't notice her situation, focusing all his attention on Taisoko. Between powering your paradox and keeping yourself standing, I bet you don't have much energy left, he tells her, his mouth pulling upward in a smirk. Stop it all now or I will. The woman cocks her head to one side. You are just as spent as I, and I still, have enough power to stop you if you come too close. You're right, Sasuke growls, which is why I won't be. He pulls his fist close to him, flexing his fingers back and tightening the wires he laid throughout the area while he was dodging her attacks. They pull taut around her, lashing her back toward the wall. A pink pouch of explosives hangs from the wires directly in front of Taisoko, deftly pressed into his hand when Sakura pressed her lips against his. Sasuke is able to watch Taisoko's eyes widen a fraction before the tag explodes. He jumps backward to avoid the blast, and suddenly the world shifts. The energy and warmth that fueled him before suddenly wash away, and he feels the curse seal receding. No! Sasuke thinks. I just need a little longer. His knees give way beneath him, and he falls forward on his hands. His vision swims in and out of focus, unconsciousness beckoning. But one thing he sees with ease: Taisoko standing before him, unharmed by the blast, though the wall behind her has been decimated by the explosion. I did tell you, little cousin, the woman says. I still have enough power. At the same time, Jiken lands one last forceful blow to Sakura's gut, rattling her ribs and internal organs, and sending her to the floor on all fours. She chokes out a mouthful of blood and vomit, internal bleeding probably. On the ground in front of her, she sees the outline of his body over her, preparing to strike her down one last time. So, are you going to cower there like a little girl, or meet death like a shinobi? Her inner self challenges her. Swollen eyes flit toward Sasuke, who is struggling to stand, and shred of strength fills her, and then to the boy she is protecting. He watches her, open-mouthed. I can still buy him another second, Sakura decides, bracing herself against the ground. I won't falter. She looks up at Jiken, and chuckles wetly, ignoring the sharp pain of her split lips. Is that all you got? He pulls back his fist, eyes bright with victorious glee. Sakura! Sasuke yells, trying to summon the strength to get to her, and knowing he won't be able to. The small child is crying in terror, no use to anyone, and Kakashi remains unconscious. With Naruto now trapped in the time bubble, he's the only one that can do anything, and he's tapped out. I'm going to watch her die, he realizes, his stomach rebelling. It's going to happen again. But then, it doesn't. All of a sudden, Sakura's body gives a spasm and a violent heave. Her face snaps upward and she jerks convulsively. There is a spray of blood and bile, and to everyone's astonishment, something black, feathered and screeching explodes from her mouth. Before anyone can understand what just happened, the thing launches itself at Jiken. Before the pale man can react, it propels itself at his face, the force of which shoves it straight through the other side of his head. There is utter, stunned silence in the cavern, as everyone stares in disbelief at the gaping, bloody hole where Jiken's eye and brain used to be. Several feet away, a chunk of brain matter gleams with a sigil that flickers and goes dark. The bloody creature, a crow, emits a victorious squawk, its eye gleaming. That's a Sharingan. That's Shursui's Sharingan. Sasuke's thought don't have time to make sense, before the creature explodes in a shower of unsubstantial feathers, leaving nothing behind but the mangled corpse. Sakura falls weakly forward then, thumping to her knees, her shoulders shaking from effort and shock, while Jiken, the remainder of his face permanently twisted in surprise, falls like a broken doll. Chapter 33, Interlude 4. Blackened bodies line the floor of the stone-enclosed rotunda, gaping holes where their hearts should be, and shriveled remains of those organs crushed nearby. Konohamaru flips the last of his opponents over his shoulder, directly in the path of Hinata, who shoves 2 fingers forward and detonates the chakra surrounding its heart. The bat-like creature screams, wings shaking, and then drops to the floor. Think that's all of them? He asks, glancing at the 2 women. The ground shakes again, forcing them to center their chakra against the floor to keep upright. There is a movement across from them, and then it seems as if the entire rocky wall in front of them, from ground to ceiling, suddenly breaks off. Hateful yellow eyes glare down on them from on high, and a giant foot steps down, landing several meters away from them. Konohamaru groans. I had to ask, didn't I? Sakura sighs. There's always a big one, isn't there? The veins in Hinata's eyes pulse, and her pupils flick back and forth quickly. There's more than one seal on this one, which makes sense, considering its size. How many? Konohamaru asks through gritted teeth as another foot stomps down, forcing giant craters into the floor beneath its clawed toes. Drool drips from the creature's maw, splashing over them. 8, like the 8 gates? Sakura cries, thinking fast. Everyone knows the location of those, if only from study. Exactly. The giant, shambling creature reaches down, trying to grasp hold of them in its mottled blood-red hand. The shinobi scatter in different directions, but it almost grabs hold of Hinata. The curse seal seems to make it faster than something of its size should be. It swings for Sakura next, and she meets the blow with a snarl, punching its grasping hand away. It does not seem bothered by the blow, and once again goes for Hinata. It specifically seems to be targeting the women, perhaps knowing that they are the key to its destruction. The constant flailing makes the ground shake and granite fall from above them, and in the distance, Konohamaru can hear something collapse together. It might be durable, but it's hindered by this place. If it keeps moving around like this, it will bring the place down, which might not hurt it, but it could cause cave-ins elsewhere, and hurt his students and their parents. If only there was. An idea occurs to him. Mrs. Boss. Did Boruto ever tell you how his class passed their academy final? Hinata and Sakura's eyes flick toward each other in a look of dawning comprehension. We need to confuse it first, so it doesn't know who to get to, Hinata says. Sakura nods. Alright, Konohamaru. We'll follow your lead on this one. Right. Kage-Bunshin. 4 clones of him appear, the maximum he can sustain while also having them use any long-term A-rank techniques. And at the same the 2 women form hand signs for henge. 7 Konohamaru scatter as the cursed seal creature brings down its hand, raking across the stone ground. They spread out in a circle around the beast, and it tosses its head in frustration trying to decide who to go after first. Using its momentary pause, the 7 figures form their next bevy of hand signs, and call out, Ishi Tojin. A swirling seal formula radiates from all 7 points, reaching to the edges of the circular room. Within the string-light formation, the creature freezes, unable to move beyond it. Hinata! The Konohamaru copy across the room suddenly says. I have an idea, if you're game. But it could get messy. Everything is already messy, the Konohamaru copy to its right says. Konohamaru! Can you keep the circle together on your own for a few seconds? As long as it's only a few seconds, Konohamaru and his clones chorus. Alright then. The clone that is Sakura says. And now, the copy beside her breaks into a run, the ceiling circle around it vanishing as it darts forward. Konohamaru grunts, feeling as if a heavy weight has been added to an already difficult burden, but holds tight. Sakura maintains her own part of the seal until the last possible second, before letting go. Konohamaru snarls in effort as the weight doubles, and grabbing hold of the clone. At her touch, the transformation is undone. The women revert to their normal forms. Sakura crouches, grabbing Hinata around the left bicep and right thigh, and then propels her toward the giant. In midair, twin lions flare to life as Hinata barrels to the creature's middle. As Hinata pierces through its abdomen, Sakura takes her position once more in the ceiling circle. Konohamaru shudders, still struggling under the weight of the jutsu, but then Sakura is focusing her chakra, taking much of the burden off of him. The beast's back arches, and they can see frenzied, jagged movements beneath its leather skin, Hinata using her Juho Sashiken from inside. Within seconds, blue flames burst from its abdomen and Hinata lands on the ground in a rain of black blood and viscera. I got 3, she says grimly, spitting out blood. Konohamaru and Sakura allow the Ishi Tojin to break, and Sakura darts forward as the beast falls, knees folding beneath it and screaming in agony. Leaping through the air, she yells, Shinaro, and slams 2 fists directly into its head, sending shards of bone into its eyes and brain. That's 2 more, Konohamaru counts, leaping up onto the creature's chest and snarling, Doton, Doriyuso. Giant spikes of earth punch through the earth beneath them, puncturing it just above the abdomen and through the ribs. Did I get them all? He demands, even as the creature continues to stir beneath them. No, there's one left. Hinata calls from the ground. You just missed the heart by inches, but Sakura is already charging forward, sliding into a crouch and kicking outward with her right leg. One of the spikes is shattered all the way through and begins to topple. She has it in her hands then, balancing the enormous slab of condensed mud, and brings it down hard on the left side of the giant's chest. The beast gives one last screech and twitch, and then goes still. The 3 of them wait, panting, for yet another wave of enemies to come at them, but it is utterly silent in the echoing chamber now. Konohamaru lets out a breath and leans on his knees. Oh man, what a relief! I don't think I could do any more. Hinata and Sakura glance at each other and smile. I must look a real mess, Hinata says, anxiously pushing a blood-slicked lock of hair behind her ear. I hope I don't make Boruto and Naruto worry, thinking I'm hurt. You look fine, Sakura grins. I've seen much worse. And they know you better than to think that could hurt you. Hinata nods. Alright, let's go. They start toward the rickety staircase, and something occurs to Konohamaru. Hey, wait. I have a name for that combo you guys used, the boss lady stream. Not now, Konohamaru. Chapter 29. Sarada's fist connects with the wall, the power of her tightly controlled chakra surging out of her with purpose. Sweat beads upon her forehead as she concentrates all of her being on maintaining a constant force, of hitting that one spot in the wall just the right way. Crack spiderweb outward, tearing across the uneven stone and rippling across floor and ceiling. The solid layers of stone beneath bend and strain against the pressure exerted by her strike, and finally give. Cracks split open, slicing through the seals upon the vortices of the ward circle on the ceiling and floor. The intricate characters vanish at the same time as the barrier is broken. Boruto tosses a shuriken into the space once occupied by the circle, and it bounces to the ground without a scratch. The disintegration field is turned off. Nice! Boruto cries, and immediately starts toward the cage. Alright, let's blow this thing. Again, wind gathers in his palm, preparing to hurl one of his vanishing projectiles, but Sarada stops him. Don't just destroy it, she says. What? Are you kidding me? That's the whole reason we came down here. You can only destroy it once. What happens if the whole thing has become self-sustaining, or there's a backup that can only be turned off by the main computer? Then it won't matter if you destroy this machine. Let's try turning it off before we blow it up. We don't have time for this. Actually, I think time has become completely irrelevant, Mitsuki remarks. Fine. Time issues aside, I like existing. What happens if you destroy it, and we get ripped apart by some kind of fallout? This causes Mitsuki to pause. That makes sense. It might be. This machine acts like a giant magnet. Suddenly reversing the poles of a magnet can cause attraction and pull them together, possibly causing them to crash into each other. And we don't want anything crashing or exploding into us. What if the machine suddenly stops pushing the paradox outward? It might contract in on us. But maybe if we slowly turn it off, the damage could be lessened. Even if that were the case, none of us are exactly geniuses with computers, Boruto points out in irritation. Without someone like Denki, we could stand here pressing buttons for ages. I believe I could figure it out, Mitsuki volunteers. Huh! I grew up surrounded by computers. And this model looks familiar. I suspect it even runs on the same operating system. I could probably find a function that allows for a slow decrease of power levels. Boruto doesn't look entirely convinced, and Sarada finds her suspicions about Mitsuki's background swimming to the forefront of her mind just then. We don't have time for that conversation. I still think we should blow it up, Boruto mutters, but he approaches the cage around the terminal and begins to pick the lock on it. We can still do that if Mitsuki doesn't figure out another way, Sarada insists. Their caution seems justified when they hear the clank noise of movement on the metal scaffolding outside, growing louder and closer with every second. Sarada cracks her knuckles, the Sharingan activating so she can track whatever threat comes at them. Boruto's fingers spark with yellow electricity, not wanting to risk the destruction on the cavern that a wind-based attack might cause. And then the entrance darkens with the shapes of three figures, but they are not the cursed seal creatures. Mama, Konohamaru and Mom? Boruto yelps in shock, taking in the startling figure that is his mother. Only she barely resembles her. Blood has slicked her hair to her neck and head, though some effort has been made to clean up, and her clothing is likewise drenched. What happened? Are you okay? He darts forward, attack forgotten, and Sarada relaxes as well as the adult stuck into the grotto with them. I'm fine, Aunt Hinata insists. There was a bit of a mess. No kidding. At any rate, we're done with all those curse-marked monsters, Konohamaru says. So let's hear it for small victories, hey? What's going on here? Mama asks. I thought you three went after Naruto and Sasuke? We did, Boruto said. But when we got up there, that Taisoko creep had them frozen in a pocket of time. It's like a sphere all the way around her, and if we tried to get in, we would have been frozen too. So I figured it might be a better idea to stop whatever power source is allowing her to maintain that time field. Then we can free Papa and Uncle Naruto, and they can deal with her and Jiken. But how are you intending to stop it? Konohamaru asks, glancing over at Mitsuki. I'm trying to find the proper command for a gradual shutdown, instead of a forced shutdown, Mitsuki says. We're worried doing that might cause a rebound of some kind, Sarada explains. Yeah, well, I'm more worried that Jiken and Taisoko are going to make mincemeat out of Mom and Dad's past selves. But then I was overruled. What did you say? Mama interrupts Boruto, eyes wide in disbelief. Oh yeah, your past selves got the brilliant idea to use Taisoko's portal opening and old man Kakashi's Sharingan to stick themselves right in the middle of everything, Boruto complains. I don't know what they did, but it knocked Kakashi out and they'll be killed. Hinata gasps. Probably, Mitsuki says, still frowning at the tiny screen. Since everyone is still here, it hasn't happened yet, however the odds are not favorable. Then we don't have time, Mama says. That machine has to stop, and it has to stop now. But, Sarada begins. Normally I'd agree that the careful approach is best, Sarada, but right now, every second counts. If we don't act now, our past selves and Kakashi-sensei are dead. But what if we all explode, winking out of existence quietly or in an explosion? It's the same result. If I had to gamble on what course of action is most likely to save everyone. Mama shakes her head. Mitsuki, please move aside while I deal with this. Yes. Aunt Sakura rocks. Boruto cheers, while Mitsuki shrugs and moves away. Whatever happened to him during his captivity, he has recovered himself enough that his temperate and agreeable nature has returned. And more than happy to once again align himself with Boruto. Sarada is still hesitant about the whole thing, but she lets Aunt Hinata move her and the rest of the team out of the cavern. From a safe distance, they watch as Mama strides forward and bends the bars around the computer terminal with ease. Then, she shoves her fists into the computer, circuits fry and crackle around her, and smoke spews from the broken terminal, but she doesn't stop, reaching further in and parting metal and wire as if it were cottage cheese. Then with a yank, she pulls the whole thing out of the wall, along with a significant portion of thick, black metal piping. The cables within the pipe are as thick as Sarada's thigh, and lead upward through the stone, radiating electricity and a familiar golden chakra. Once Mama yanks the computer terminal away, though, the bright energy fizzles and disappears. Silence echoes all around them, and Sarada's ears pop, the omnipresent hum she barely noticed before now gone. Then, something begins to rumble. It starts within the room where Mama continues to stand, and the ceiling starts to crack and crumble in earnest, the gap where the giant pipes were laid folding in on itself. Move! Mama yells, and drops the terminal to one side, before diving from the cavern, just in time to avoid the little room collapsing in on her. The movement doesn't stop there, however, and before their eyes, an entire section of the rotunda begins to cave in on itself. The scaffolding they stand on churns and twists, and they are forced to make a run for it, jumping from stairs and platforms that crumble beneath their feet. As they reach the bottom once more, stumbling over the unmoving bodies of the curse-marked creatures, the entire scaffolding disintegrates before their eyes. Far at the top of the dome, they watch as an eerie gold light emanating from Taisoko's grotto winks out. We stopped it. Boruto cheers. You think? Sarada asks, not entirely sure. Your mothers are both still here, Mitsuki points out. Which is true, but it's too quiet up top, which could mean the cavern collapsed in on itself the minute the time pocket disappeared. And while she's sure Papa would be able to get everyone out before they got squished, the fact that he hasn't yet makes her worry. There's a suspicious lack of mayhem for a place where both our husbands are, Mama says. Hinata and I will look into it. And Konohamaru, this time I mean it. Take the kids in. Sarada! Watch out! And Hinata, whose back was turned to her, suddenly whirls around and reaches out to her, alarmed. As everyone else turns to her, a hand reaches out behind her, grasping her by the neck and dragging her backward. She can only gape as the images of her loved ones vanish in a flash of golden light. Itachi Uchiha is a sociopath. That thought is the clearest one Sakura can muster just then. She kneels, her entire body trembling from shock and pain and confusion, and her stomach is turning in on itself, and she wants to throw up, because somewhere, an entire crow just burst out of her mouth. Her vision blurs, reality bending around her, and she thinks she can hear his voice again, chillingly soft and measured. Protect Sasuke, tell him. But she can't quite get the words into focus. There's no time to dwell anyhow. Taisoko is motionless before her, staring at the body of her lackey in disbelief, and that's probably why she hasn't made a countermove yet. Assets, Sakura prompts herself, trying to shock her mind back into working. What assets do I have? None, it seems. Sasuke lies upon the ground, staring at her in shock, unable to pull himself to his feet, whether from lack of chakra or lack of strength. Probably both. Kakashi is still unconscious, and Orochimaru is barely out of toddlerhood, scared and huddled behind her. And Naruto is gone, too, trapped in the same time bubble as his and Sasuke's future selves. And Taisoko is moving again. Free of her cables, she has very little strength beyond standing, but her Sharingan remains active. There has to be a way to distort her gaze, to get past her. Her body is so frail, almost that of a mobile skeleton, that someone of Sakura's relative weakness should be able to take her in a straight-up fight, even as bruised and battered as she is now. It's the dojutsu that adds the danger element. Even as she considers it, her muscles throb in protest and her vision swims with black spots. Taisoko bares her teeth at Sakura, who averts her gaze, and then looks towards Sasuke. He flinches as her ruined mouth pulls into a perversion of a smile, and then returns her attention to Sakura. Give me the child, she rasps, and I will spare you in your last moments. You can hold your love for what remains of your existence. There is no doubt in her voice that the end of everything is close, and it terrifies Sakura. This is not the usual fear that hits her during a dangerous mission, the kind that can be pushed off and talked away, with the distant hope of some way we'll pull this off, that always lingers at the back of her mind. Truthfully, the only time she ever feels like that is when Naruto makes one of his impassioned speeches. She flicks her eyes to where her friend is frozen now. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and my future dream is to surpass the Hokage. And so, I'm going to get the entire village to acknowledge my existence. But this isn't the forest of death, where Team 10 and Team Guy wait in the wings to help her until her boys wake up. She is literally facing off against death on her own, with no question that she will die. Her inner self even wonders if it might not be better to agree to Taisoko's terms. To go hold on to Sasuke for a few final moments. It would be fitting. I'm Sakura Haruno. What I like, who I like is... And my hobby is... My future dream is... Sasuke meets her eyes, furious and frustrated and trying to think around this latest obstacle. His face pulls into a snarl of defiance in the face of death, but as he meets Sakura's gaze, there's a momentary flicker. He can tell what's going through her mind, can see her temptation to give in. And he doesn't even blame her for it because he's so tired. He doesn't remember a time when he wasn't fighting, and right now, he's at his limit. My name's Sasuke Uchiha. I have an ambition to restore my clan. He is bruised and bleeding and about to die, but in this one instant, that ambition is not what comes through in his gaze. All his thoughts and attention lock on her, waiting. Sakura's lips part in astonishment. This is the boy she loves. This is the person who has had her heart by inches since she was 6 years old, and who will always have it. And right then, in that infinitesimal short moment, she understands without question, the same way she knew she had to save Sarada before she even knew the girl was her future child. She knows that even if Sasuke doesn't show it or properly acknowledge it himself, she has his heart, too, and she's not about to betray that for momentary comfort. Sakura struggles to her feet, half expecting muscles and bone to snap beneath her from sheer exhaustion. Sakura! Sasuke bites out, an effortful warning or plea. It doesn't matter. Sasuke can still save the Uchiha, and restore them, even without her. Right now, if the choice is between both of them dying or just her, there is no choice. Maybe there's no guarantee that Sarada's mother has to be her. Maybe Sasuke can find a chance at happiness if she succeeds. And I would give anything to protect your happiness, she remembers saying as she moves her body into a crouch. She draws out her last cherry blossom tag. Because you are the person that is most precious to me, she charges Taisoko. The emaciated woman snarls, preparing in her own way for the attack, her Sharingan the ever-present threat. Sakura, but she is already vaulting through the air, gaze fixed just below Taisoko's eyes, concentrating all effort and awareness on trying to sense where the next assault will come from. She dodges explosions and time portals left to right, and notes with a boost of confidence that they are coming much slower now. Fast enough to dodge with relative ease. Taisoko is weakened too, whatever threat she still possesses, and Sakura does not intend to waste that. As she enters into Taisoko's immediate range, the place where the ancient Uchiha has more control, Sakura throws her last bomb directly at the woman's face and prays that despite the 50-50 chance she has, Taisoko detonates the explosive with the spin of her Mangekyo Sharingan, and Sakura laughs in triumph. Caution and self-preservation thrown to the wind, she vaults directly into the path of the explosion, bursting through the flame with her right arm raised and screaming, Shaneru! Her fist connects with Taisoko's sternum, and she feels it shatter beneath her knuckles, the 4 of her chakra rending surrounding ribs and muscle, and in that moment, her eyes meet Taisoko's scarlet gaze. The black wheel in the iris contracts in pain and rage, and Sakura knows what's about to happen, but there's no course-correcting now. Sound and heat explodes around her, followed by a searing pain, and then nothing. Sakura's body is thrown backward from the force, and unlike the first time, when she saved Sasuke from suffering the same fate, she doesn't get up again. Sasuke doesn't realize he's screaming until the last remnants of the explosion clears the air, leaving a heavy silence within the pocket of time. Sakura's body twitches in pain, the only indication that she's still alive. Her entire front is a mass of blood and bone and blackened blisters. Her left eye, the one that remains unruined, stares up at him emptily. Taisoko clutches at the wall, trying to stand while glaring down at Sakura's body. She coughs, blood dripping down her lips, and then begins to laugh, a dry and heaving sound. I'm still standing, girl, she hisses. And now, no one can stop me. She turns her back on the ruined remnants of Team 7 and lurches toward Orochimaru. The tiny boy is crying and scrambling, trying to push himself further into the equipment but having nowhere to go. "You are mine, filth!" She reaches out a spindly hand to pull him toward her. A flat plane of violet chakra erupts between Orochimaru and Taisoko, throwing her back before she can touch the boy. It's a shapeless slab in the air, resembling a large human rib. Sasuke's head feels like it's on fire, like a switch has been flipped in his brain, and whatever strength remains in his body now bleeds into his eyes. They burn, and every other cell in his body burns right along with them. Taisoko recoils. "Susanoo, no, that can't be." She turns to Sasuke, who stumbles to his feet. With every movement, he can feel the life leaving his body. With his chakra exhausted from the curse seal, he thinks he might just be burning through his own life force to keep that shield, the same one his older self used, between Taisoko and Orochimaru. He has no other goal now other than to continue the protection that Sakura offered before sacrificing herself. Sasuke can see the damage to Taisoko's body, and if he can get to her, blood drains down his face from both eyes, to tracks that mirror those of the woman before him. Sensation in his extremities disappears, toes and fingers, then calves and forearms, and he pitches to his knees. If he has to fucking crawl, he's going to do it. The world flickers, narrowing to dim gray shades, and he's dying, he knows it. Sakura's dying, Kakashi might already be dead, and Naruto is frozen in time, and Sarada will never exist. He's dying, but he'll be damned if he isn't taking the monster in front of him out too. The golden wall of chakra around them ripples, once, then twice in quick succession, and then the earth begins to rumble beneath them. They shouldn't be able to feel that, trapped in the bubble of time as they are, but the more the golden chakra begins to wane, the more the world shakes. Crevices split into the walls beyond the time pocket, and Taisoko stumbles back against the wall where she was secured. Gravity pulls Sasuke downward, and he falls weakly onto Sakura, sprawled across her. The world edges away, and somehow his left hand falls into her right, and he thinks now there's nothing else, now he can sleep. But the earth is shaking too much and the time bubble is vibrating, and he thinks he sees his future self's fingers begin to twitch. Searing hot, golden light pulses and then explodes outward, blanketing everything. Sasuke has the impression of a rubber band suddenly contracting in on itself, before it pulls inward, jettisoning toward Taisoko. There's an instant where it passes over him, and he is nothing. No sight, no sound, no movement, no sensation. He ceases to exist. Awareness returns with a roar, and he watches as the golden band wall that passed over him slams into Taisoko, flattening her against the wall, before she falls face down on the ground. She doesn't move, and Sasuke can notice all of this because suddenly he can feel again. There's no pain anymore, he realizes as he pushes himself up, staring at his hands. They are devoid of any bruising or telltale signs of scuffle. Turning his head to the right, he gapes at Sakura, who blinks up at him in confusion from two perfectly whole seafoam eyes. Her face is restored, and her skin no longer hands in blistered shreds. "Sasuke?" she asks, bewildered, and his chest constricts with disbelief and respite because she is not dead. "Sasuke!" Then she is throwing herself forward, wrapping her arms around his neck despite the awkward angle, and her grip is suffocating, but he doesn't push her away. He's too stunned at their wholeness, the fact they are both completely intact, so much so that even their clothing is mended. Somehow, Sasuke is wearing his high-collared blue shirt again, and Sakura's tunic is its full length, and Naruto. He whips his head around, watching as his teammate and their future selves stumble as if taking a wobbly step forward. They all seem mildly confused, except for adult Sasuke, whose gaze is locked on something behind Sasuke. He discovers what when another body knocks into his, and looking down, the child Orochimaru has grabbed on to Sakura's free arm, clutching at her like a lifeline. In this bizarre place, she must, and Sasuke can't even blame him for it because something in him thinks the exact same thing. What the hell just happened? Naruto demands, gazing around at the cavern that is no longer taken up by the thick, curved wall of chakra. "How'd I get here?" "You entered the time field just as we did," Sasuke's future self says. "While you were in it you were frozen, but something disrupted it, and it rebounded on its creator. And in the process, it appears to have returned us to the condition we were in before we encountered this paradox," a voice adds, and they all glance over to where Kakashi is getting to his feet. There is no hint of blood in his mask, no clawing shreds across his chest from Mimit. "Kakashi-sensei!" Naruto and Sakura whoop, and she lets go of Sasuke to get to her feet. Orochimaru buries his face in her hip, and despite her bemused look, she allows it. Sasuke tamps down the inexplicable and unwanted glimmer of annoyance at that, and looks away pointedly. His gaze falls upon the still unmoving corpse of Jiken. If time reset us all, why didn't Jiken come back to life? Not that he's complaining, but he was dead, Sasuke's future self says simply, and the chakra sigil binding him to Taisoka was severed, the future Naruto says. That was the only thing that was keeping him reanimating. I imagine he's been dead for a long time. As for the rest of us, none of us were dead, future Sasuke continues. Cells frozen in time are different from those that have expired. He is watching Sakura with a set to his jaw, and Sasuke knows exactly what he's feeling. She was never dead. He holds one hand out in front of him, calling upon his Sharingan, and finding that it is no effort to do so. The strange burning sensation from earlier is gone, and he wonders for a moment if what happened to him moments earlier meant that he briefly, very briefly, possessed the same eyes as his brother, because of Sakura. No, he tells himself, very firmly. It wasn't that. It's not a strong denial, but it's enough for now. But wait a minute, Naruto says, frowning. How the heck did Jiken die? 1 second, I was fighting him and then, bam! I'm here. It was Sakura, future Sasuke says. With a little help. She looks up in surprise. How do you know that? You were frozen. The Rinnegan allows me to see beyond time. While I was trapped, I was still aware of what was going on. Future Sasuke scowls at them all now, before his eyes rest on Kakashi. You were all reckless coming here. It almost killed you, and us. Police, asshole, Naruto snorts. You'd still be a timesicle if it weren't for us showing up. Speaking of, his future self says, this isn't over. No, it's not, a cold voice interrupts, and everyone stills. The voice is new, and yet not, and when they all look over, they stare in horror at a standing Taisoko. Only it's not the chilling, living dead goddess they all battled until the point of death. A woman, barely out of her teens, stands before them. She looks uncomfortably like Sarada, only her eyes are slits of red anger, and her mouth is twisted into a cruel smile. The time bubble rebounded on her as well, and instead of destroying her, it seems to have reset her to the way she once was, too. Adult Sasuke twitches, like he's about to move, but Taisoko's Sharingan is back to its full power as well, and she freezes him in place once more. I might not be able to change time from outside my personal timeline the way I planned, but my abilities remain otherwise intact, she sneers. In fact, they are stronger than they ever were. All that chakra I gathered? It's in me now. And none of you will be able to stop me from going back and ending this hell of a world before it begins. That's what you think, adult Naruto says, and his fiery chakra flames to life. Oh, I do not think. I know. Because the larger paradox is retracting, too. As it builds speed, it will erase everything out of its proper temporal location, she drawls. Her Sharingan flicks to one side, and a portal opens. She reaches into it, and then yanks her arm back, dragging a stunned Sarada back to her by the throat. And you will all be far too busy looking for this one to escape it. And with a final sneer, she opens a second portal and charges toward it, yanking Sarada along with her. Chapter 30. Several things happen simultaneously. Kakashi and future Naruto both dart forward, as Taisoko barrels toward the time portal with Sarada. Giant tendrils of flame and light explode from this Naruto, straining toward Sarada as Kakashi puts on a burst of speed to reach her. He manages to brush her ankle before she and Taisoko vanish through the portal. Sarada! Kakashi's students all shout in shock and dismay. Damn it! Naruto snarls as his glowing chakra hands swipe at the empty air. The overwhelming chakra recedes. With Taisoko gone, the power keeping future Sasuke in place disappears, and he stalks forward, Rinnegan blazing to life in his left eye. Move, I'm going after her. How? Future Naruto asks. You don't even know where they went, or when. The scene in reality still fresh. I can follow the trail. But there are infinite layers of time and space you'd have to weed through first, aren't there? Sakura cries. That could take forever. Not necessarily, Kakashi says. I managed to place a chakra trace on her before she went through. It's faint, but it's there. I'll go with you and... There's a commotion at the entrance to the cavern, and everyone tenses, expecting a new wave of curse-sealed monsters to arrive. Instead, the rest of Team Konohamaru arrive, with Hinata and Sarada's mother in tow. The woman is pale beneath the mark on her forehead, and her eyes dart around the space with a sort of manic desperation, before they fall upon her husband. Sarada? She croaks. Future Sasuke's jaw is set and he shakes his head. To anyone who doesn't know him, he would seem unaffected, but Sasuke knows that look from experience. His future self is probably gritting his teeth so hard he's in danger of breaking them, and so he has to be the one to tell her, Taisoko took her through a time portal. Future Sakura's hand claps to her mouth in disbelief. Then we have to go after her, Boruto declares. She could be anywhere, Mitsuki points out. Sasuke thinks if anyone looks unaffected, it's this strange kid. Everyone calm down, future Naruto orders. We will figure something out. Calm down? The younger Naruto demands. Did you see what just happened? That creepy and old lady got made all creepy and young and powerful, and she grabbed Sarada. This isn't the time to be calm. It's exactly the time to be calm, Kakashi informs him in a level voice, because we have a slew of problems coming at us and a limited time to deal with them. Missteps at this juncture could be fatal. As if they're not already? Sakura asks, and then jumps a little when the small boy at her side burrows in closer to her hip. I want to go home, he murmurs tremulously. She shivers a little. He's a defenseless kid right now, but in a few decades, he will grow up and become one of the most terrifying people she has ever met. She swallows, trying to put that out of her mind, and hesitantly pats his head. She supposes that at this age, it's not his fault what he becomes in the future. Probably there's something that happens for him to become like that, but it hasn't happened yet. So he's just a scared little kid, surrounded by strangers and with no idea what's going on. We'll find a way, she tells him, hoping she's not wrong. Sarada's disappearance is a problem, yes, but not the most immediate one, Kakashi goes on, earning identical cries of outrage from Naruto and Boruto. But he puts a hand up. While it won't derail history up until this point in time, we have no idea what it will do to the future, so obviously we have to get her back. But it's not the most pressing matter. My ass, it's not the most pressing matter, future Sakura growls. And Sakura is a little scared of herself just then, because she's never seen that particular look on her face. We will, her husband says, in a tone that offers no other alternative. As if even the gods wouldn't dare make him a liar. We will, Kakashi echoes. As I was saying earlier, I managed to place a chakra marker on her, the same way I did with Jiken after our encounter in the tunnels. Wherever Sarada is, whenever she is, we should be able to find her. Especially with the space between dimensions being as thin as it is. It's still going to take a while, Sakura protests. We have to be quick. And that's the other problem, future Sasuke says. The paradox surrounding this area is no longer being sustained by the machinery Taisoko was using to augment her power. It will be sucked back inward, and whoever or whatever is in the middle of it will be obliterated by the force. And we still have to get Orochimaru home, future Naruto says, eyeing the child hanging on to Sakura. Even if we manage to avoid getting ripped apart by the paradox's backlash, if he's not back in his time once it retracts, the timeline will be disrupted anyhow. But isn't that true for all of us? Sakura asks. Yes, but your time is closer to our time than Orochimaru's is. And he will have, a lot of influence on everyone in this room at one point or another. Sasuke, can you find where he was taken from by scanning the portal the kids and I came through? Kakashi asks. It could take a while, which we don't have. Hinata? Future Naruto asks. Can you see how far off that thing is? About 10 minutes, Hinata says, squinting into the distance. But I could be wrong. The wave of chakra seems to be picking up speed the closer to the origin of the paradox that it gets. Then let's do this now, future Naruto says. It will also give Sasuke a chance to test the strength of the genjutsu needed to make sure all of you forget this. If we survive, Naruto mutters, if we survive. Future Sasuke treads over to Sakura and Orochimaru, who shrinks closer into her side. The kid tries to hide behind her, fearful of the intimidating adult in front of them. If Sakura didn't know it was Sasuke, and if she didn't trust him with her entire being, she thinks she would be afraid too. Remembering how Kakashi encouraged her to speak to Sarada when they first found her in the crater, Sakura reaches out to stroke his hair. Hey, don't worry, okay? He's not going to hurt you. Yellow eyes peek up at her, doubtful. May I try? Sakura looks up at the soft voice and sees that Mitsuki has appeared behind her. He looks down at the boy with an indecipherable look, though she gets a distinct sense of curiosity and amazement. Two sets of yellow eyes consider one another. And is it just her? Or do these two boys sort of look similar? No way. There's no way. Mitsuki smiles then and raises his hand. In the palm of it, a tiny white snake appears, sliding from beneath the wide sleeve of his robe. You like snakes, right? He asks Orochimaru. Would you like to hold him? The little boy's eyes dart to the snake, lighting up in interest. He nods and takes a tentative step away from Sakura, holding out his palm. Mitsuki reaches out, allowing the small serpent to slither around Orochimaru's arm. Why the hell does he have a... Naruto begins, but Sasuke reaches out and claps a hand across his mouth. He is rapidly putting together a few things in his head, and while he isn't entirely sure he cares for the conclusion, they don't have time for Naruto to muck it all up with an overreaction. Kakashi, coming to the same conclusion, studies the adult versions of his students. It is the future Naruto who meets his gaze, and nods in confirmation. Kakashi has no idea what to think. Sakura watches the encounter, somewhat awed, and then shakes her head. We have a way to get you back to your parents, okay? But you have to let Sasuke come over to help. The boy glances over at the blank-faced adult, then back at Sakura and Natsuki. Something like trust enters his eyes, and cradling the snake like an anchor, he takes a step forward. Future Sasuke doesn't come any closer, and instead gets down on a knee to put himself at eye level with the boy. Look into my eyes, he tells the boy. I need to scan your memories to find out where exactly to bring you. It will not hurt. The pale boy's lip trembles, but he squares his shoulders and nods. The Sharingan glows, and Orochimaru tenses. It's only a second, though they all know in his mind it might be much longer, and then Sasuke releases him, straightening up. I know where he was, he says, and strides over to the spot where Kakashi and his squad burst through the portal. He braces himself in front of it, and there's a flare of purple light around his silhouette. Got it. A portal opens behind him, purple and black energy swirling together shapelessly for a few seconds, before something similar to Taisoko's time windows radiates from the center. It's like a pane of glass opening onto a sunlit day, the forest and road stretching out beyond. I don't see anyone over there, Sakura says. They're there, Hinata speaks up, her eyes roving toward the portal for a moment. They're far enough away they won't see this portal, but not too far that he won't be able to catch up with them. Sakura ventures forward, nudging the little Orochimaru with her. He hesitates a moment, then turns to Mitsuki, who nods and follows her. You have to go through there, okay? Sakura says. Your parents are over there. You just have to walk through. I understand, Orochimaru murmurs, swallowing as he steps toward the portal. Wait a moment, future Sasuke says. Look at me. Orochimaru looks up, and the black star in Sasuke's Sharingan spins. The boy's eyes go blank and his fearful expression relaxes. Once you step over the threshold of the portal, you will forget ever coming here. You simply fell behind your parents. Run to catch up with them. The boy nods slowly, and then walks forward with the shuffling gait of a sleepwalker. Everyone watches with bated breath as he steps into the window. The snake Mitsuki gave him vanishing as soon as he is on the other side. The window snaps shut, the portal disappearing, and with it the boy. There's a moment of silence where no one dares to breathe. Then, did that work? Naruto wants to know. We're all still here, so I'd say Orochimaru never remembered anything, future Naruto says. Trust me when I say if he remembered, things would be very different. Is it just me, or did he look a bit like you? Boruto asks Mitsuki, who shrugs guilelessly. Next problem, future Naruto declares. Sarada, and trying to figure out a way to escape the impending bubble of time that will rip us all to shreds, Sakura adds. Both of those things seem equally important. Either option could lead to the destruction of the other, Sasuke points out. 6 minutes, Hinata warns them all. Could you temporarily place everyone in a separate dimension, like you did with past us earlier? Future Sakura asks her husband, a note of urgency in her voice. If you even think about sticking me in the damned sand again, Naruto begins. Perhaps, but it would strain my chakra, future Sasuke replies. I'll need every bit of it to find Sarada. Unlike with Orochimaru, whose time I could find because he was here, there are many potential timelines Sarada could have crossed, even with Kakashi having placed a trace on her. His fist clenches, and Sasuke knows what he's thinking. He might have to choose between saving his past self and saving his daughter. And I wouldn't be able to go through myself. It would only be enough for her to come through, assuming we even find her. Don't act as if I'm not going to be standing here helping you look, future Naruto says wryly. You need a chakra sensor, and I'm way better than you. Not to mention I've got the reserves to spare to improve your range. His eyes gleam yellow with his senjutsu. And you'll both need someone to make sure your hearts don't explode from the effort. So you know I'm staying to help too, future Sakura sniffs. Never mind that it's my daughter, and there's no freaking way I'm going anywhere until she's safe. Sasuke, if you open a portal, Konohamaru and I can make sure the kids and Kakashi get to safety, Hinata says. Until you figure something else out. No way. We're staying to help. Boruto protests. I'm not exactly looking forward to dying in a desert or freezing to death in another dimension if future me dies, Sasuke adds in agreement. So, what's the difference if we all just stay here? Yeah. We want to help find Sarada too, Naruto insists, while Sakura and Mitsuki nods in agreement. We can lend chakra or something. The difference is, the probability of us getting out unscathed is significantly higher than it is for you guys, future Sakura replies. Since we've had more practice, you know, future Naruto adds. Screw that, I'm still not getting stuck in some stupid desert again. Naruto, this isn't up for discussion, Kakashi says. If worse comes to worse, I can find us a way out. Probably. Oh, like that makes me feel any better, and that helps you guys, but what about us? Boruto wants to know. We are technically linked to a different time, Mitsuki agrees. What if we skip that step entirely? Sakura suggests. I mean, if it's such a strain on future Sasuke to portal us somewhere safe, why don't you do it, Kakashi-sensei? It is how we got here in the first place. You do remember that almost killed me? He reminds her with a raised eyebrow. No, I don't mean open portals to other dimensions, just one dimension. Everyone is staring at her now, and she swallows, nervous to have so many eyes on her. Kakashi-sensei used his Kamui before to trap Jiken. That's a dimension that's outside of whenever we are now, right? So if the time bubble collapses in on itself and destroys whatever's right here, if we're in a different dimension, we should be safe, and Kakashi-sensei can bring us back to our time, since he's connected to it. The Konohanan from the future exchange tense glances. Surprisingly, it is future Sasuke who speaks. The Kamui dimension is problematic. Why? We used it before, Sasuke says, and it's pure luck that turned out as well as it did, future Naruto says. As it is, we don't know if it didn't have any unforeseen consequences. What's that supposed to mean? Naruto demands. Kakashi-sensei isn't the only one who can access Kamui, future Sakura says carefully. Yes, I am. No, you're not. For minutes, Hinata says, her tone steely in its urgency. Gah! This makes no sense. Naruto yells in frustration. Kakashi-sensei said he was the only one who could use it. Don't you think he know that better than you guys? Yeah, how could anyone else have access to it, since it's his Sharingan that opens it? Sakura wants to know. A beat later, she realizes she's just answered her own question. Wait, unless there's someone with the same Sharingan, Sasuke says. He shoots a suspicious look at Kakashi. You said he was dead, and that's how you got your Sharingan. There's no other way he would have been allowed to keep it. Sasuke's father would have seen to it. He is dead, Kakashi says in a clipped, cool tone. Still, he has gone very white beneath his mask. Well, future Naruto says, rubbing at the back of his head in discomfort, that's not completely true. Sarada feels the hold on her neck release, and then a moment later she is tumbling forward, rolling several feet into the dirt and grass. Whipping her head up, she watches in dismay as the portal closes behind her, and her stomach twists. She's so overcome with dismay that for a full 5 seconds she doesn't notice the other person with her, on her hands and knees, retching into the grass. In the distance, Sarada can see tents and horses, and can hear the clang of weapons. Probably she is somewhere in the past, but there's no telling when. At first, she doesn't recognize the woman, can only see the inky black hair and ivory skin. But then she looks up, and Sarada takes in the cruel mouth and livid Sharingan, and she knows. Taisoko. But how? This woman is not the withered crone Sarada saw chained to a wall, and trying to kill her parents. She looks like she can't be more than 5 or 6 years older than Sarada right now. There's no time to think about it too hard. Taisoko pushes herself to her feet, and Sarada tries to do the same, but her legs feel like jelly. She can only stare up at Taisoko in mute frustration, out of breath and shoulders heaving, and waiting for the next blow. The older girl takes a step forward, then another, her Sharingan blazing in preparation for an attack. You're out of your time now, girl, and as good as dead, she sneers at Sarada. But you have gotten in my way far too often today. Goodbye, little cousin. Sarada braces herself, trying to predict where the attack will come from and how she should dodge. But then Taisoko's eyes abruptly turn dark. Now! She growls, pressing a palm to her eye in frustration. Sarada takes the opportunity to pull herself to her feet, and studies the other girl. Realization dawns on her. I get it, she says quietly. Whatever you did, wherever you've taken us, it drained you. And since my team and I got rid of the energy source that was powering you, you can't draw on it anymore. Maybe you even lost connection to it once you brought us through the portal. She clenches her fists. That means you have a weakness now. I still have the chakra to pull off jutsu. All she's got is taijutsu. I know Uncle Itachi said she was the pride of the Uchiha, but maybe I'll be lucky, and their standards were lower. I do not need a Sharingan to deal with a gnat like you, Taisoko growls, and shifts into a ready position. Even if I did, it is just a matter of time before my chakra replenishes enough to move on. More than enough time to kill you. Are you sure about that? Sarada challenges, easing into her own starting position. Try me, or maybe not. There's no more warning than that. The two girls charge at each other. Sarada punches outward, fist connecting with Taisoko's jaw. The other girl's head flies to one side, and she uses the momentum to spin around and backhand Sarada, who staggers backward before recovering. They exchange a flurry of punches and blocks with equal force, before Sarada takes a wild swing, charging her fist with enough chakra that if she connects this time, her hand might go directly through the other woman's skull. Taisoko ducks, then moves fluidly upward to lash out with a roundhouse kick. Sarada bends backward to avoid it, leaving her open to the next swing of Taisoko's leg, this time aimed at her face. She drops low, springs back up and kicks outward, the ball of her foot connecting with Taisoko hard enough to throw her backward. In the moment she spends to recover, Sarada summons her Sharingan and casts a genjutsu to paralyze the other woman. Taisoko stills, and Sarada pulls out a kunai, vaulting forward. Take out the eyes? Eyes first, and then I have to set her on fire. Before the kunai comes within an inch of her eyes, awareness flashes across Taisoko's face, and she casts off the genjutsu. Her hands come up, grabbing Sarada's wrist and pressing her nails into the pressure point in the crease. Sarada yells in pain, her fingers forced to open and let go of the kunai. Taisoko catches it with her other hand and immediately thrusts it towards Sarada's throat. It's only due to the Sharingan that Sarada is able to move her head in time, gaining only a sharp graze against her neck. She knees Taisoko in the abdomen and throws herself backward until they face each other anew. Only this time Taisoko is armed. Damn it. I messed up. Really, girl? I was the prodigy of my clan. Do you really expect a half-bred brat like you to get the better of me in battle? Maybe not, but I'm going to try, Sarada shoots back. They clash once more. This time, Sarada doesn't try to save up her chakra, instead calling up two shadow clones to help her attack Taisoko. They slide forward to sweep the legs out from under her, but Taisoko darts forward, flipping in the air and pushing off from their backs with her palms. As she straightens, she snaps her heel downward towards Sarada's face in a move meant to break bone. Sarada catches the leg and goes to twist it at the knee, but Taisoko moves her body with the movement and kicks her other leg to hook around Sarada's neck. Not wanting to have her neck broken, Sarada grabs Taisoko around the thigh before she can get a proper hold on her and flips her over her shoulder. The older girl somersaults through the air and lands on her feet, just as the clones come around for a second attack. Pushing off from the ground, Taisoko spins in midair, whipping her legs at their heads. The clone vanish into clouds of dust, but Sarada uses their distraction to inhale deeply, summoning the fire from within and sending a concentrated jet of flame at the other girl. To her consternation, Taisoko copies the jutsu, using her own katan to nullify Sarada's. She's recovering her chakra too quickly. Sarada vaults forward, striking out with an elbow and then lashing out with two kicks. At the same time, she casts another genjutsu, this time to bring a thick mist around them. Hoping it will obscure her movements, she then uses a shunshin to get behind Taisoko and strike at her back with another kunai. But Taisoko whips around at the last second, knocking the kunai aside with her own blade, and striking Sarada across the jaw. She reels backward, but doesn't let herself fall, keeping her eye on Taisoko as the other girl bounds toward her. Sarada makes a fist, calls up her strength and sends a chakra-infused punch at her attacker. Taisoko dodges out of the way and Sarada hits the ground, churning up giant chunks and debris. Touching down on the ground with a knee and palm, Taisoko's eyes, the blood red of the Sharingan, narrow in speculation. Obviously, she didn't expect that. That's not an Uchiha technique. That's right, Sarada says with a smirk. And it's not something you can copy with the Sharingan. Taisoko's lip curls. You might be better than me in a lot of ways, but I just need to hit you once and you're done. And the more you use your Sharingan before it has time to fully recharge, the more tired you're going to get. Taisoko's irises flit from side to side, as if she is doing some very quick thinking, and then she sneers at Sarada. Her Mangekyo Sharingan activates, and Sarada freezes as she tries to figure out if she's about to be blown up, and if so, what direction to head in. But then instead of using her ability to speed up time, she instead opens another portal. No! Sarada cries and throws herself forward, just catching hold of Taisoko as the portal closes. The scene shifts, and Sarada's stomach rebels once more at the abrupt change. Taisoko uses the scant second to grip hold of Sarada and toss her over her shoulder and face first into a wall. Ignoring her lips splitting and the blinding pain of her nose smacking the wall, Sarada flips to one side, ready to catch the kunai Taisoko is about to bring down at her back. Then the other girl staggers back with a cry, clutching her eyes. Blood drips down her face as her Sharingan vanishes. She's tapped out again. Before Sarada can capitalize on this, Taisoko takes off at a stumbling run. Damn it! Pausing only a moment to check her nose, which thankfully isn't broken, Sarada follows her. She can't let the other girl go far, because if Taisoko gets enough power back to open another portal, Sarada will be stuck in the past. She thinks it is. Her eyes catch flashes of her surroundings as she goes, and she easily recognizes the sights of Konoha. She's home, in her own village, which puts her at an advantage because Taisoko doesn't know these streets like Sarada does. Except, a massive explosion rocks the world, causing Sarada to stumble in her pursuit. To her shock, a building falls directly in front of her, crushed by the tail of a giant snake. What? She has to duck out of the way as the tail sweeps further, taking out the next alleyway and buildings, and Sarada's brain stutters for a moment. The beast looms several stories high, its hiss a deafening roar as it continues to demolish the building. In the distance, there are two others just like it. Giant snakes in the village? Why are there giant snakes in the village? Something tugs at her memory, and she distantly remembers a class back at the academy, on the history of Konoha. That's right. We studied this in class. There's only one time in the history of the village when giant snakes attacked the city, and it was the day the third Hokage was killed, along with a lot of other people, and I'm going to be one of them if I don't catch up with Taisoko. Sarada can't waste any time. She has to find Taisoko and get out of here before she gets killed. She runs in the same direction as the other Uchiha disappeared in, and as she flees past several roads, she can see Shinobi and Suna Hideate fighting with Konoha. There are screams in the distance, and though Sarada's instinct is to get out and help those people, she knows she can't get caught up. Another explosion sends her reeling to the floor, and she pushes herself to her feet, clutching the wall of an alley for support. She hears voices up ahead, and after a beat sees a group of Sunanin materialize from the dust. They are knocking in doors and breaking windows, looking for women and children. They all appear to be empty, with the exception of the surplus supply store, which has a giant hole blown in the side of it. Can't let them catch me. I don't have the strength or time to fight all of them. Sarada turns, about to head in the other direction, when she catches movement from the corner of her eye. She refocuses, and then her jaw drops in dismay as she catches sight of Manako Inuzuka, about 20 years younger than Sarada has ever seen her. The demolition expert is struggling to stay standing despite severe bruises and bleeding across her entire right side. Evidently she was caught in whatever blast ruined the storefront. The shinobi approach her and Sarada catches her grin, before the entire street suddenly erupts into flame. Sarada watches as if in slow motion the way the explosives, hidden along the sides of the street, demolish a path toward the shinobi, all of whom are frozen by some sort of sealing circles beneath them. Manako, unable to move, simply watches the explosions rumbling toward her, a grim sort of triumph on her face. Manako, Sarada isn't aware of moving. 1 second, she is taking cover in the alley, the next she is slicing through the air from one location to another, throwing herself at the teenage girl that will one day become one of the adults that helps raise her. At the last moment, she uses a shunshin to move the two of them out of the wake of the explosions. They tumble to one side in a plume of debris. It is Sarada who recovers first, and quickly, rolling Manako over to check to make sure she is alive. The girl groans and squints up at her. Her pupils are different sizes, probably a concussion, but something like recognition flashes across her face. Is Izumi? She whispers, and then a moment later, her eyes roll back, and she goes limp. No, don't do that! Sarada cries, because she can't stay and stabilize her. She's already done more than she should, has lost time finding Taisoko. But if she just leaves Manako here, what if a building collapses on her? Indecision and fear paralyze her, as well as worries about changing the timelines. If she hasn't already. Hey kid! What are you doing here, hey? A Konoha Jonin appears beside her. Everyone below Chunin is supposed to be in the bunker. Sarada gapes up at the man, who looks exactly like Konohamaru-sensei? Well, if he had sideburns. The man. She realizes this must be the Arata Sarutobi that Kakashi mentioned earlier, gives her an anxious and frustrated look. You've seen my son? I thought he was in the bunker. He doesn't dart off to find him, though, instead going to lift Manako. Come on, I'll get you both to safety. But Sarada backs away. I can't, I have to. There's no time for excuses though, especially since she can't think of anything. Instead turns and runs off. Hey kid! She doesn't hear anymore, his voice lost in the sound of explosions and battle all around her. Searching the winding alleyways will take forever, and so she braves the open air and possible death by giant snake to widen her search. With the Sharingan, she can search several laneways at a time. It feels like forever before she regains her bearings and sees a flash of a familiar figure. Taisoko is stumbling through a wide street where several Suna and Konoha shinobi are fighting. Houses crumble and streets cracks from the roiling earth, and Sarada watches Taisoko tensing her shoulders and clenching her fists. It looks like she's trying to summon up her chakra again, and Sarada knows she's calling up another time portal. You are not leaving me behind. As she aims her free fall for Taisoko, one of the giant snakes takes notice of her and snaps after her. Sarada can't help a reflexive scream as she aims, and feels the rush of air behind her as the massive maw almost catches her and she's through. Just as Taisoko stumbles in from one side, Sarada dives through the other. Somehow, they collide on the other side of the portal, rolling over each other until they come to a stop with Sarada on top. The location is different once again, this time night, and lit only by torchlight. The sounds of battle surround them, screams and cries. Smoke fills the air, mixed with the scent of blood and burning flesh. There are men and women all around them, struggling with one another even as Sarada fights Taisoko, punching downward to knock the other girl out. Taisoko jerks her head to one side, before catching hold of Sarada's wrists in her own, and they struggle against one another. Taisoko manages at last to shove Sarada off of her, and they both struggle to their feet, before attacking again. Punches and blocks, sweeping kicks and the occasional slash of a kunai. Come on! Sarada snarls internally. You have to be getting tired already. I know I am. Not far away from them, a teenager with red hair and wearing the Uzumaki clan emblem on her back battles with a wild-haired teen in Uchiha colors. The girl raises her fist, glowing with a chakra that Sarada is intimately familiar with, about to bring it down on the boy's face. At that moment, Taisoko kicks Sarada the abdomen, the force of it sending her flying backward and into the Uzumaki girl, who overbalances and knocks into the boy she was fighting. The two of them go tumbling out of view in a flurry of armor and blades, and Sarada loses track of them. She gasps for breath, trying to regain the wind that was knocked out of her, and her attention snaps back to Taisoko. A beat later she has to duck as a giant shuriken flies through the air, nearly decapitating her and Taisoko in its wake. Get us out of here! Sarada demands. Taisoko grins. Why? There is such a very high chance you will get cut down by a Senju warrior while wearing that cursed fan on your back. Right. This is the kind of world she comes from. She has the advantage here. Why are you so desperate to destroy the Uchiha? Sarada demands, throwing herself forward to clash with the other girl again. Aren't they your family? My jailers, Taisoko snarls, blocking the heel of Sarada's hand and using her momentum to spin her around. Sarada ducks down, going for a leg sweep, but misses. So you'll destroy countless generations of innocent people just get revenge on a few that hurt you? I am Uchiha. It is what we do. I don't accept that. Sarada yells, and by some miracle, she gets behind the older girl. She folds her right arm around Taisoko's neck, and presses her head with her left. Just a little bit of force, and she can break it. Taisoko snarls with effort, and Sarada hears the dull roar of a portal being opened behind her. A beat later, Taisoko's head crashes into her face, causing her already swollen nose to explode in pain once again. By instinct alone, Sarada keeps a hold on the other girl, as they fly backward into another time. As the portal vanishes, her strength begins to fail, and Taisoko uses this opportunity to grasp her by the arm and swing her forward. Sarada cries out as she hits the ground, flat on her back. She is paralyzed in that moment, and can only watch in mute horror as Taisoko brandishes her kunai and uses both hands to plunge it down towards Sarada's throat.